Hi y'all, welcome and welcome back to this video, which is an introduction to feminist ethics and its core concepts. As we begin, I want to make something clear. In this video and in my class, with the framework that we're studying feminist ethics, we're not looking at gender politics, identity debates, or cultural controversies. Instead, we're using feminist ethics as a philosophical framework to understand how power shapes moral experience and why certain voices have historically been excluded from the story of ethics. Feminist philosophy, in this sense, invites us to look critically at who has been allowed to speak, who has been silenced, and how those patterns influence what we think morality is all about. To understand why feminist ethics mattered, we need to look at the history of philosophy. For most of the history of Western ethics and Western civilization, the people writing moral theories were overwhelmingly elite, educated men with access to the public world, politics, universities, scientific institutions, and positions of authority. Their theories were often brilliant, but they reflected the perspective of a very narrow group of people. The moral experiences of women, of the poor, of colonized peoples, of enslaved people, of racial minorities, and of those excluded from public life were rarely taken seriously as sources of ethical insight. In many cases, they were dismissed outright. This is where feminist ethics enters the conversation. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, feminist ethics is an attempt to revise or rethink traditional Western ethics wherever it devalues or ignores certain people's moral experience. That's our working definition. Notice that it does not say women's ethics or ethics only for women. Instead, it highlights an often overlooked truth. Moral theories always emerge from someone's point of view. If only one kind of person is permitted to define ethics, then our moral theories will inevitably reflect that limitation. One of the most influential critiques of traditional Western ethics comes from Alison Jagger, who argues that earlier moral theories fail marginalized groups in 5 major ways. First, they center men's issues and interests while downplaying or ignoring the ethical concerns of others. Second, they treat the so-called private sphere, home life, caregiving, domestic labor, as morally insignificant. Third, they often imply that women or marginalized people are less rational or morally mature. Fourth, they place higher value on traits associated with masculinity, like independence, abstraction, and self-sufficiency, while devaluing traits associated with femininity or communal cultures, like connection, emotion, and interdependence. And fifth, traditional Western ethics tend to prefer abstract rules, universal laws, and detached reasoning over relational, contextual, or experience-based ways of thinking. Jagger's critique doesn't simply tell us what's wrong, it also tells us what's missing. If moral philosophy fails to include the experiences of entire groups of people, then it cannot fully describe human moral life. Feminist ethics seeks to correct that oversight by expanding what counts as morally relevant and who counts as a moral authority. Another important point for us to clarify is the difference between feminist ethics and the ethics of care. These traditions are often linked, but they're not the same. The ethics of care focuses on relationships, responsibility, and the moral importance of caregiving. Feminist ethics, on the other hand, is primarily concerned with structural power, how systems of domination shape our understanding of morality. Some feminist philosophers even critique the ethics of care for unintentionally reinforcing traditional gender expectations, which is why we treat these two approaches as separate units in my class. Throughout our studies of feminist ethics, you'll encounter a variety of thinkers whose work challenges the boundaries of traditional moral philosophy. Some of those names may be familiar and others may be new. Feminist ethics includes the voices of Black feminists, Latina and Chicana thinkers, global and post-colonial philosophers, as well as male feminist thinkers. Their backgrounds differ, but they share a commitment to addressing how exclusion, oppression, and social location influence moral understanding. Their insights invite us to ask deeper questions about whose experiences we treat as authoritative and whose we overlook. As we move forward, keep this central idea in mind. Feminist ethics is a philosophical tool for revealing the non-neutral, power-shaped nature of ethical theory. It does not reject earlier moral systems entirely, but it does challenge us to notice what they left out. By bringing in marginalized experiences and interrogating social structure, feminist ethics expand our ethical vision and help us to see moral life with greater clarity. In the next lesson, we'll step back into history and examine how feminists throughout time developed their ideas, from early voices calling for recognition to the waves of feminist movements to the contemporary landscape of intersectional and global feminist philosophies. Alright, y'all, that's all for now. If you're interested in more videos about philosophy and ethics, check out the videos posted on our channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.